There are people who walk into a room and immediately change its energy. They don't raise their voice, flash credentials, or demand attention, yet everyone instinctively turns toward them. What's happening in those crucial first moments that separates natural leaders from everyone else? The moment you encounter another person, your brain launches what researchers call the person perception cascade, a lightning-fast series of neural computations that occur within 100 milliseconds, faster than a single blink. This isn't shallow snap judgment. It's sophisticated pattern recognition honed by millions of years of evolution to rapidly assess threat, opportunity, and social hierarchy. Neuroscientist Alex Todorov at Princeton discovered that these split-second assessments predict real-world outcomes with unsettling accuracy. People shown political candidates' faces for just 1/10 of a second correctly predicted election winners 70% of the time. Their brains were processing competence signals below the threshold of conscious awareness, extracting information from facial geometry, micro-expressions, and postural cues that conscious analysis would miss entirely. But here's what makes this phenomenon philosophically profound. These instant assessments aren't just about the person being observed. They reveal the neural architecture of respect itself. Your brain isn't passively receiving signals. It's actively constructing a social reality based on evolutionary templates for leadership, trustworthiness, and group value. The anterior cingulate cortex, often called the brain's conflict monitor, plays a crucial role in this process. It's constantly scanning for discrepancies between what someone says and how they say it, between their claimed status and their unconscious behavioral signals. When these elements align, when someone's inner state matches their outer expression, it triggers what psychologists call authenticity recognition, a neurological green light that opens the door to respect. Consider the philosophical implications. If respect is largely determined by unconscious neural processes occurring before conscious thought begins, then commanding respect isn't about manipulation or performance. It's about achieving genuine internal alignment that your nervous system can't help but broadcast. This is why traditional advice about fake it till you make it often backfires. Your autonomic nervous system, the part controlling heart rate, breathing, and micro-expressions, operates below conscious control. When there's incongruence between your internal state and your attempted external presentation, other people's mirror neurons detect this mismatch instantly, triggering subtle aversion responses they can't consciously explain. The neuroscientist Antonio Damasio describes this as somatic marking. Your body generates emotional signals about people and situations before your conscious mind processes the information. These bodily responses, mediated by the vagus nerve and transmitted through micro-expressions, posture, and vocal tonality, create what we experience as presence or its absence. What we call charisma isn't personality, it's neurobiology. Research by psychologist Olivia Fox-Cabane reveals that charismatic presence emerges from the intersection of three neural states: focus, power, and warmth. Each of these states produces distinct physiological signatures that other people's nervous systems detect and respond to automatically. Focus manifests neurologically as gamma-wave synchronization, a state where different brain regions oscillate in harmony, creating what researchers call neural coherence. When someone achieves this state, their attention becomes laser-like, their responses more precise, and their presence more magnetic. Others unconsciously mirror this neural coherence, which is why focused individuals seem to bring out the best in people around them. The power component involves the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your body's stress response system. People who command respect naturally show what endocrinologist Robert Sapolsky calls adaptive stress response patterns. Their cortisol rises appropriately to challenges but returns to baseline quickly, while their testosterone increases during competitive situations without triggering aggression. This hormonal signature broadcasts competence and emotional regulation simultaneously. Warmth emerges from oxytocin and mirror neuron activation. When someone genuinely cares about others' well-being, their brain releases oxytocin, which affects everything from eye contact patterns to vocal warmth. Mirror neurons in observers detect these signals and trigger reciprocal oxytocin release, creating the experience of connection and trust. Here's what's fascinating. These three neural states can be consciously cultivated, but only through practices that create genuine internal change rather than surface-level behavioral modification. The philosopher William James observed that, "We don't sing because we're happy because we sing." Similarly, we don't command respect because we feel worthy because we embody respect-generating neural states. Let me share the story of Dr. Sarah Chen, a brilliant molecular biologist who consistently had her ideas overlooked in department meetings despite having the most innovative research. Sarah possessed deep expertise and genuine insights, but her nervous system was trapped in what neuroscientists call defensive activation, a chronic state of physiological guardedness that others unconsciously interpreted as uncertainty or threat. The breakthrough came when Sarah learned to shift her internal state before important interactions. Through practices that regulated her autonomic nervous system, specific breathing techniques that activated her vagus nerve, visualization exercises that primed confidence-related neural pathways, and mindfulness practices that enhanced present-moment awareness, she began generating the neurobiological signatures of natural authority. Within months, colleagues were seeking her input, her research proposals were being funded, and she was invited to lead collaborative projects. Nothing about her expertise had changed, but everything about her neurobiological presence had transformed. Your brain contains sophisticated circuitry for detecting social hierarchy, developed through millions of years when misreading dominance relationships could be fatal. This system, involving the orbitofrontal cortex and anterior temporal lobe, processes status signals faster than conscious thought and triggers automatic behavioral responses based on perceived rank. Research by neuroscientist Caroline Zink shows that when people interact with those they perceive as higher status, their striatum, the brain's reward center, becomes more active, literally making the interaction feel more pleasant and meaningful. Conversely, when interacting with perceived lower status individuals, this reward activation decreases, making the interaction feel less engaging or important. This isn't conscious snobbery, it's an unconscious neural bias that affects everyone, regardless of their egalitarian beliefs. The critical insight is that these status assessments aren't based on actual credentials or achievements, but on immediate neurobiological signals that can be consciously influenced. The hierarchy detection system responds to specific markers: postural expansiveness, open versus contracted body positions, vocal characteristics, resonance, pace, and tonal variation, eye contact patterns, duration and quality of gaze, and what researchers call temporal sovereignty, the ability to control timing and rhythm in interactions. People who naturally command respect have learned, often unconsciously, to generate high-status neurobiological signals without triggering threat responses in others. This is the delicate balance between power and warmth that characterizes true leadership presence. Consider the research of psychologist Amy Cuddy on power posing. When people adopt expansive physical postures for just 2 minutes, Their testosterone increases by 16% while cortisol decreases by 25%. These hormonal shifts affect not just how they feel, but how others perceive them. The body posture literally changes brain chemistry, which changes social perception, which changes real-world outcomes. But here's the deeper principle. Your nervous system is constantly broadcasting your internal state through channels you're not consciously controlling. Respiratory patterns, microfacial expressions, vocal tonality, and postural alignment all carry information about your emotional and physiological condition. Other people's mirror neuron systems automatically detect and respond to these signals, creating what we experience as instant rapport or immediate aversion. The individual who commands respect naturally has achieved what I call neurobiological congruence. Their conscious intentions, emotional state, and physiological condition are aligned in ways that create coherent, attractive signals for others' nervous systems to mirror. Perhaps the most crucial discovery in understanding instant respect is the role of mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action. These neurons create automatic emotional and physiological synchronization between people, forming the neurobiological basis of empathy, rapport, and social influence. When someone with strong presence enters your field of awareness, their neural state literally begins to entrain yours through mirror neuron activation. If they're calm and centered, you feel more calm and centered. If they're anxious and scattered, you begin to feel anxious and scattered. This isn't conscious mimicry, it's automatic nervous system synchronization that occurs below the threshold of awareness. The neuroscientist Marco Iacoboni describes this as neural Wi-Fi, an invisible network through which emotional and physiological states propagate between people. Those who command natural respect have learned to maintain coherent internal states that others want to mirror, creating positive feedback loops that amplify their influence. This explains why some people are energizing to be around while others are draining, regardless of their conscious behavior or intentions. Your mirror neuron systems are constantly downloading others' neurobiological states and integrating them into your own experience. When someone maintains states of calm confidence, focused attention, and genuine care for others, these qualities become contagious through mirror neuron activation. The implications are profound. Commanding respect isn't about projecting strength or asserting dominance. It's about maintaining internal states that enhance others' experience of themselves. When people feel better in your presence, they naturally attribute positive qualities to you and seek more interaction. Research by psychologist Barbara Fredrickson on positivity resonance shows that high-quality connections between people create synchronized brain activity, heart rhythm coherence, and increased oxytocin release in both parties. These shared peak states form the neurobiological foundation of what we call chemistry, rapport, and mutual respect. The key insight is that this synchronization happens automatically when certain conditions are met, but it can also be consciously facilitated through practices that regulate your own nervous system and enhance your capacity for authentic presence. Here's where understanding instant respect becomes philosophically complex. The more you try to manufacture respectful responses from others, the less likely you are to receive them. Your autonomic nervous system can't lie. Attempts at strategic impression management create incongruence that others detect as inauthenticity, triggering subtle aversion responses. This creates what I call the authenticity paradox. The most powerful way to command respect is to genuinely embody respect-worthy qualities, but you can't embody these qualities solely for the purpose of gaining respect without creating the very incongruence that undermines your efforts. The solution lies in understanding that true presence emerges from what the philosopher Martin Heidegger called authentic being, a state of alignment between your deepest values, conscious intentions, and moment-to-moment actions. When this alignment occurs, your nervous system naturally generates the coherent signals that others experience as magnetic presence. Consider the story of James Morrison, a mid-level manager who was consistently passed over for promotions despite strong performance reviews. James had fallen into what psychologists call approval-seeking mode, constantly monitoring others' reactions and adjusting his behavior to gain acceptance. This created a subtle but persistent incongruence that others interpreted as weakness or insecurity. The transformation began when James shifted focus from trying to impress others to expressing his authentic values and insights. Instead of asking, "How will this make me look?" he began asking, "What does my integrity call for in this situation?" This internal shift created neurobiological changes that others couldn't help but notice and respect. Within 6 months, James was leading high-stakes projects and receiving unsolicited feedback about his leadership potential. The external changes followed naturally from the internal realignment. He wasn't trying to command respect. He was simply being respectable in ways his nervous system could authentically express. This points to a deeper truth about human social dynamics. Respect is less about individual characteristics than about the quality of presence you bring to interactions. When you're genuinely present, fully engaged with what's happening rather than managing your image, you create space for authentic connection and mutual recognition. The neuroscientist Daniel Siegel describes this as mind sight, the capacity to see and shape your own mind while remaining attuned to others. This dual awareness creates what others experience as wisdom, emotional intelligence, and natural authority. Understanding why some people naturally command attention requires examining the social neuroscience of influence itself. Your brain doesn't process individual people in isolation. It constantly evaluates them within social contexts, looking for cues about group dynamics, alliance patterns, and collective hierarchy. Research by neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman reveals that social pain activates the same brain regions as physical pain, suggesting that social inclusion and exclusion are processed as fundamental survival issues. People who naturally command respect have learned to create experiences of inclusion and social safety for others, triggering approach rather than avoidance responses. This involves what I call social field awareness, the ability to sense and positively influence group dynamics rather than just individual interactions. When someone enters a room and naturally becomes a focal point, they're not just managing their own presence, they're unconsciously orchestrating the social field in ways that enhance everyone's experience. The key mechanisms involve several interconnected brain systems. The superior temporal sulcus processes social cues and intentions. The medial prefrontal cortex manages social reasoning and perspective taking. The temporal parietal junction integrates self and other awareness. When these systems work in harmony, they create what others experience as social intelligence and natural leadership. People who command instant respect demonstrate several consistent patterns in their social neuroscience. They maintain strong boundaries without creating barriers, they express confidence without triggering competition, and they show genuine interest in others without losing their own center. These seemingly contradictory capacities require sophisticated emotional regulation and social awareness. The fascinating aspect is how this plays out in group dynamics. Research by psychologist Alex Pentland on social physics shows that groups unconsciously organize around individuals who demonstrate specific communication patterns. They speak in shorter, more varied utterances. They're more likely to face others when speaking, and they demonstrate what he calls honest signaling. Their nonverbal behavior matches their verbal content. These patterns emerge naturally from internal states of genuine confidence and authentic interest in others. You can't fake the neurobiological signatures that create these communication patterns, but you can cultivate the internal conditions that give rise to them naturally. Now that we understand the neurobiology of instant respect, how do we practically develop these capacities? The key is working with your nervous system rather than against it, creating internal conditions that naturally generate external presence. The first principle involves what neuroscientist Stephen Porges calls neuroception, your nervous system's unconscious detection of safety or threat. When you feel genuinely safe and grounded, your vagus nerve activates social engagement systems that make you more attractive to others' nervous systems. Conversely, when you're in defensive or survival mode, you unconsciously broadcast threat signals that trigger avoidance responses. Developing magnetic presence begins with nervous system regulation. This involves practices that activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state that enables social connection and creative thinking. Simple techniques like box breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4, can shift your autonomic state within minutes. The second principle involves what I call somatic integrity, alignment between your physical posture, breathing patterns, and internal emotional state. Your body is constantly sending signals about your inner condition. When these signals are coherent and grounded, others unconsciously perceive you as trustworthy and competent. Practice maintaining what martial artists call centered stance, feet shoulder width apart, weight evenly distributed, spine naturally erect, shoulders relaxed. This posture naturally activates confidence-related neural pathways while signaling stability and groundedness to others. The third principle is attentional sovereignty, the ability to choose where you focus your mental energy rather than being reactive to external demands. When your attention is scattered or defensive, others sense this instability. When your attention is focused and intentional, it creates a magnetic quality that draws others into deeper engagement. Develop the practice of conscious presence. Periodically throughout the day, pause and ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Am I present with what's actually happening, or am I lost in mental projections? This simple awareness practice gradually strengthens your capacity for sustained, focused attention. The fourth principle involves emotional granularity, the ability to recognize and name subtle emotional states in yourself and others. Research by psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett shows that people with high emotional granularity have better emotional regulation and more effective social interactions. They can perceive nuanced emotional information and respond appropriately rather than reacting from broad emotional categories. Practice expanding your emotional vocabulary and paying attention to the subtle feeling tones present in different interactions. This enhanced emotional awareness allows you to navigate social dynamics with greater skill and authenticity. The highest level of commanding respect appears effortless precisely because it emerges from internal mastery rather than external technique. When someone has developed genuine self-knowledge, emotional regulation, and authentic care for others, they no longer need to work at creating respect. It flows naturally from who they've become. This is what the Taoist philosophers called Wu Wei, effortless action that emerges from alignment with natural principles. In the context of social dynamics, Wu Wei manifests as the ability to influence situations through presence rather than effort, through being rather than doing. The neuroscientist Richard Davidson's research on contemplative practices reveals that sustained mindfulness training creates measurable changes in brain structure and function. The anterior cingulate cortex, crucial for attention regulation, becomes more active. The insula, important for interoceptive awareness, develops greater density. The prefrontal cortex, essential for executive function, shows enhanced connectivity with emotional centers. These neuroplastic changes translate directly into enhanced social presence. When your brain is better at regulating attention, processing emotions, and maintaining awareness of your internal state, you naturally generate the coherent signals that others experience as magnetic presence. But perhaps the most important insight is that commanding respect isn't ultimately about getting something from others. It's about becoming someone whose natural way of being contributes positively to every interaction. When this shift occurs, respect becomes a byproduct of authentic self-expression rather than a goal to be pursued. The story of Maria Santos illustrates this beautifully. As a young architect in a male-dominated firm, Maria initially tried to command respect by being more aggressive, speaking louder, and over-preparing for meetings. These strategies backfired, creating tension and resistance from colleagues. The breakthrough came when Maria shifted from trying to prove her worth to simply expressing her authentic passion for innovative design. She began speaking from genuine enthusiasm rather than defensive necessity. She started asking questions from curiosity rather than trying to demonstrate expertise. She offered ideas from inspiration rather than obligation. The change in others' responses was immediate and dramatic. Colleagues began seeking her input, clients requested her specifically for projects, and senior partners started including her in strategic discussions. By becoming more authentically herself rather than trying to fit others' expectations, Maria discovered her natural authority. The psychology of instant respect reveals a profound truth about human nature. We're wired to recognize and respond to authenticity, integrity, and genuine presence. The people who command attention without trying have learned to embody these qualities so naturally that others can't help but be drawn to them. This isn't about manipulation or social strategy. It's about personal development that creates positive ripple effects in every relationship. When you develop genuine self-knowledge, emotional regulation, and authentic care for others, respect becomes not something you seek, but something you naturally inspire. The neuroscience shows us that presence isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a set of learnable skills involving nervous system regulation, attentional training, and emotional intelligence. Every time you practice conscious breathing, maintain authentic eye contact, or speak from genuine interest rather than ego protection, you're strengthening the neural pathways that create magnetic presence. Remember that the goal isn't to become someone different, but to become more fully yourself, aligned, authentic, and genuinely engaged with the world around you. When this alignment occurs, commanding respect becomes as natural as breathing, because you're no longer trying to get something from others. You're simply offering the gift of your authentic presence. Your nervous system is constantly learning and adapting. Every interaction is an opportunity to practice presence, to strengthen your capacity for authentic engagement, to become more of who you truly are. The respect you command will be proportional to the respect you embody, not as a performance, but as a natural expression of your developed character. If this exploration of presence and respect resonated with you, subscribe for more insights into the practical neuroscience of human potential. Understanding how your brain creates social reality isn't just fascinating. It's the foundation for building more meaningful connections and authentic influence in every area of life. What aspect of your own presence will you begin developing today?